Berlin, November 1942. Snow drifts across the courtyard of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. Inside, a small group of scientists gathers around a blackboard thick with equations. Cigarette smoke curls through the air, blurring the chalk lines, symbols of power, fear, and ambition. Werner Heisenberg, Germany's greatest physicist, the man who once redefined quantum mechanics, stands silently as an assistant scribbles the word urine machine. The uranium machine, the Nazi vision of an atomic weapon. Heisenberg knows what this means, a weapon powered by the very fabric of the universe, but he also knows how far away they are. Their calculations are incomplete, their materials scarce, and their understanding uncertain. Behind closed doors, SS officers whisper about a bomb that could end London in a single flash. But Heisenberg shakes his head. It's impossible, he mutters. Not in this war. Not with what we have. The others glance nervously. No one dares to contradict the Reich's expectations. Not even a Nobel laureate. Outside, the war machine of Nazi Germany rumbles on, devouring steel, oil, and lives. But here, in this quiet corner of science, reality refuses to obey ideology. Across the continent, Allied scientists are reaching the same conclusion, at least, for now. Nuclear fission is powerful, yes, but harnessing it into a weapon seems like chasing the sun, and yet something is already moving in secret. A quiet message passed through diplomatic channels will soon set off the largest scientific collaboration in human history, one that will make Heisenberg's impossible seem terrifyingly real. Because while Heisenberg debates theory in Berlin, the Americans are about to unleash industry itself into the world of atoms. Chicago, December 2nd, 1942. Beneath the stands of Stagg Field in a hidden squash court, a group of men huddles around a strange contraption, a crude sphere of graphite blocks stacked in layers like black stone. There are no uniforms here, no marching boots, only lab coats, tension, and the quiet hum of scientific daring. At the center stands Enrico Fermi, his face half shadowed by the dull light of a single bulb. He's calm and unnervingly calm. If we're right, he says softly, this will change the world. Around him, the team waits. The counters click softly. A neutron source is inserted. For a moment, nothing. Then slowly the readings climb. 0.5, 1 so, 1.5. The chain reaction is sustaining itself. Fermi looks up. The reaction is self-sustaining, he says, voice steady. The world's first nuclear reactor. No explosion. No fireball. Just silence, the quiet birth of a new era. Word travels fast, though never publicly. President Franklin D. Roosevelt authorizes the creation of a secret network of laboratories across America. Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, Hanford. The Manhattan Project is born, a name that hides an operation of unimaginable scale. Factories spring from nothing. Trains carry uranium and plutonium under armed guard. Tens of thousands of men and women work in secrecy, not knowing what they're building, only that it might end the war. Meanwhile, in Berlin, Heisenberg continues to calculate, confident that no one else could possibly succeed. Germany's reactors sputter and fail, sabotaged by Allied raids and resistance fighters. Heisenberg insists the quantities required for a bomb are impractical, but across the ocean, Oppenheimer, Groves, and Fermi refuse to accept that word. Impossible. Every resource of the Allied world converges toward one terrifying goal. The race is no longer theoretical. It's industrial. It's global, and deep in the New Mexico desert, a new kind of storm is gathering. Trinity Site, New Mexico, July 16, 1945, 5:29 a.m. The desert is still. The wind whispers across the sand, carrying the faint scent of rain. 1,000 miles from the battlefields of Europe, a handful of scientists crouch behind bunkers, eyes fixed on a steel tower holding a sphere no larger than a melon. The world's first atomic bomb. Robert Oppenheimer stands apart, motionless. His hair is damp with sweat despite the cool dawn air. For 2 years he has carried this burden. Equations turned into explosives, theory into annihilation. Now it's all about to be tested. A voice crackles over the radio. -1 minute. In the distance, thunderheads flicker. Someone whispers a prayer. Others simply stare. Then, light. A sun is born on Earth. The desert explodes in a blinding flash of white, brighter than anything human eyes have ever seen. For a fraction of a second, night becomes day, and then something beyond either. The shockwave races outward, slamming into the bunkers like a giant's hand. The scientists duck, shouting, laughing, crying. A cloud rises into the sky, swirling like molten glass, the first mushroom cloud. Oppenheimer's lips move silently. Later, he'll recall the words from the Bhagavad Gita. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Far away, across the Atlantic, German scientists interned in England sit in a quiet estate called Farm Hall. They listen to the BBC broadcast, not believing what they hear. An atomic bomb has been dropped on Hiroshima. Heisenberg turns pale. Impossible, he whispers. They couldn't have done it. But they had. The Reich had crumbled months before, its dreams of atomic power buried beneath the ruins of Berlin. Yet now, in the ashes of war, the Allies have done what Heisenberg once dismissed. The impossible had become inevitable. And in that instant, the world crossed a line it could never step back from. Farm Hall, England, August 6, 1945. Behind the thick stone walls of an English manor, 10 of Nazi Germany's finest scientists sit in confinement. Among them, Werner Heisenberg, Otto Hahn, Karl Wirtz, and Kurt Diebner. They've been comfortable here since the war's end, provided with wine, newspapers, even a piano. But today the air is different. A BBC radio broadcast hums faintly in the corner. The men sit frozen as the announcer's words echo through the room. The United States has dropped a new type of bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. It is an atomic bomb, harnessing the power of nuclear fission. A stunned silence follows. Heisenberg leans forward, his cigarette trembling between his fingers. Hahn, the very man who discovered nuclear fission in 1938, looks stricken. My God, he whispers. We started it, and they finished it. For years, the German team had believed it couldn't be done, not with wartime shortages, not with theoretical uncertainty, not with physics still half a mystery. They'd assumed that even the mighty American industry would fail to bridge that gap. Now realization settles like dust. They hadn't just miscalculated the science. They had misjudged an entire nation's willpower. Hidden microphones record every word as the men argue late into the night. Heisenberg paces the floor, trying to reconstruct how the Americans did it. Perhaps they used uranium-235, or plutonium. His voice rises in disbelief. But the scale, the machinery required, it's beyond comprehension. Otto Hahn buries his face in his hands. We could have built it, he murmurs, if only we had tried harder. But it's too late. The war is over. Germany's laboratories lie in ruins. The scientists who once dreamed of impossible weapons now find themselves haunted by what their equations had unleashed in someone else's hands. The next day, the radio brings another broadcast. Nagasaki. Another city erased in an instant. Heisenberg sits quietly at the window, staring into the English countryside. We thought the Americans were behind, he says at last, almost to himself. But they were running while we were still walking. The room is silent. The weight of their failure, and what it had unleashed, hangs heavy in the air. And somewhere across the ocean, Oppenheimer stares into the desert sky, realizing that triumph and terror have become the same thing. Los Alamos, New Mexico, August 1945. The desert wind is dry and restless. The war is over, but inside the laboratories of Los Alamos the mood is not victory. It's silence. The mission that consumed 3 years, $3 billion, and countless sleepless nights has succeeded. But at a cost no one can measure. Robert Oppenheimer stands before a chalkboard filled with erased equations, the ghostly white dust still clinging to the slate. The numbers don't matter anymore. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are gone. 2 cities erased by science. Hundreds of thousands dead. He lights a cigarette and exhales slowly, eyes distant. Around him, the scientists who once cheered at Trinity now avoid each other's gaze. There are no more experiments to run, no theories to test. Only the haunting question of what they've unleashed. Oppenheimer's words to President Truman would soon become legend. Mr. President, I feel I have blood on my hands. Truman, uneasy, replies coldly, the blood is on mine. The lines between savior and destroyer blur. The bomb ended the war, but it also ended the illusion that humanity could ever control its own genius. Across the Atlantic, Heisenberg reads about Hiroshima from his quiet captivity. He knows the world has changed forever. Not because Germany lost the war, but because science has escaped all borders. The race for atomic power is no longer secret. The Soviets will soon begin their own. The arms race has begun, born from disbelief, driven by fear. And yet, somewhere deep down, Heisenberg can't escape one thought: if he had truly believed it was possible. If he had told Hitler that a bomb could be built, perhaps the war and the world would have ended very differently. But that's the paradox of genius. The men who understood the atom best, both in Berlin and Los Alamos, were the ones who feared it most. The atomic age had begun. Not with a roar of triumph, but with a whisper of dread. August 1945. The world exhaled, not in relief but in shock. The fires of Hiroshima and Nagasaki faded into drifting ash, and the war that had consumed the planet was finally over. Yet amid the ruins, a new war, colder, quieter, more dangerous, and had already begun. In Germany, Werner Heisenberg was eventually released from captivity. He returned to a country divided, haunted not just by its defeat but by what might have been. He never built his bomb, but he carried its shadow for the rest of his life. In lectures and interviews, he would speak softly of science, ethics, and the limits of ambition. But sometimes, when his voice trembled, listeners could hear the weight of regret. Across the ocean, Robert Oppenheimer stood before the United States Congress. Once, hailed as the father of the atomic bomb, he now found himself shunned for opposing the hydrogen bomb, a weapon far more destructive than the one he helped create. His genius, once celebrated, became a cautionary tale. Heisenberg and Oppenheimer, two minds on opposite sides of a world war, united by the same truth: that the greatest power ever discovered by man could never be undone. The dawn that rose over Hiroshima was not just the end of a war. It was the beginning of an age where humanity would forever live under its own creation: the atom, both savior and destroyer. And though the scientists who made it possible grew old and faded from history's front pages, their work remained, gunned in silos, submarines, and missiles pointed toward the sky. The power they unleashed no longer belonged to nations or armies. It belonged to time itself. The German scientist once said it was impossible. The Americans proved it wasn't, and the world has lived in the shadow of that discovery ever since. The silence after the storm was not peace. It was a warning.